Okay, good morning, everybody. Welcome to our special council meeting on July 8th. First of all, we would like to begin by acknowledging that we are in Robinson Superior Treaty Territory and that the land on which we gather is the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe and the Métis. I have approval of agenda. Everybody good with it? Any disclosures of interest? Seeing none, we'll get right into number one, other business. 2022 tax policy review.
This is a recommendation here from the treasurer that the 2022 tax ratio bylaw be drafted using 2021 adopted ratios and that no tax rate discounts be applied to commercial or industrial subclasses.
Okay, that's just normal procedure.
So we, in 2009, the council of the day did reduce their commercial ratio to the 1.98 where it remains today, and the purpose to do that had to do with taking us out of levy restrictions. So yeah, this is an annual bylaw and exercise that we do. The big note to take away from here, the first note, is that we are starting 2022 with slightly less funds. What your revenue neutral or notional rate is with the $11,741. But the big thing is the attachment to look at. So when you have to pass ratios that distributes the tax burden amongst the classes. The caution is if you reduce one ratio, what it does is it moves the tax burden from that tax class onto the other. In that table, under those scenarios, the first column is your status quo where we are. If you were to, for example, reduce your commercial ratio from 1.98 to 1.5, you'll see that it would put $100,000 onto your residential class, and your residential class already absorbs the majority of your tax burden at like 73%. Of the tax burden is absorbed through the residential class. So if you were to reduce your commercial ratio, it would be just right off the bat $100,000 that the residential class would have to absorb. So the recommendation is to keep your ratios at status quo. And this is just to illustrate why you do not want to change anything.
What was it prior to 1.98 or whenever? Big difference or not?
Let me see if I can find that very quickly.
And you know, another thing is this range of fairness there, once you move anything, it can only be moved closer to the provincial range of fairness that's on page 2 of Marlene's table there. You can never move it back up, so it's a permanent change.
You can never move what back up?
So supposing you moved your commercial tax ratio down from 1.98, you moved it down 1.5, you can never move it back to 1.9 again.
Really?
How come?
Legislation.
Yeah.
So why would you move it to 1.5 anyway? Why not move it to 1.9?
Yeah, well, if
If it was fair to do that,
that's 25%.
why would you not do the 1.9? Can you do it? Can you do that, or?
You could do that if you wanted to, but
If
the
it was
suggestion,
fair,
so
if it was fair to do that.
If it was, you could, so what Nathan is saying is that you could reduce your ratio. The impact is that if you were to reduce your ratio from 1.98 to 1.9, you would never be able to move it back up to 1.98 that it is. So basically, it's almost
It would be a permanent shift onto the residential class.
Yeah, but that doesn't I mean, that's legislation, but why would you not have the opportunity to juggle or move your ratios around and not make it permanent? I don't understand why it's permanent.
Well, that's a question for your province.
Yeah.
Why?
Because there, under certain circumstances, you may want to adjust that, and then you may want to adjust it back in the future.
Exactly.
I think if you had potentially if you had a larger, tax base, but I think right now if you look demographically at your residential class, right?
Yeah.
You know, they pay the majority, and they don't have the ability necessarily as a commercial enterprise does to, increase income. I mean, at the end of the day, it's a challenge for everybody right now. Nobody's disputing that there's a challenge, whether you're a residential person or you're a business person. There are challenges that exist out there for everybody, but there's more room for business enterprise to be able to adjust their income than there is for your residential class being Schreiber right now, probably, right?
The province puts out a lot of this legislation with a wide brushstroke, you know what I mean? And what may work well for one municipality or some municipalities in Southern Ontario may not certainly work well here, so something to keep in mind.
So what the recommendation here is to continue with status quo and the distribution of the ratios. Before that, to answer your question, in 2008 it was almost 2.08 was the ratio. So they did the council of the day at that for 2009 reduced it to the 1.98. And because anything over that threshold, it meant that if you put a 6% levy in, if you're above the threshold, if you put through a 6% levy increase through, it meant that your commercial class would only receive 50% of that increase, so that your other classes had to absorb that difference. So in essence, your other classes were taking on more of the tax burden. So the whole idea of actually reducing the ratio to the upper limit of the range of fairness is that your classes are paying their taxation based on their current value assessment, as opposed to getting protection by any kind of increase that goes through. So it really was trying to, the tools were implemented by the province back in the day to allow local freedom to get classes and taxpayers to be paying their real tax burden instead of being capped. So when you were above the 1.98, you were capped at how much taxes, and then everybody else had to pay. So this is, you're paying your fair share now. Everybody's paying their fair share.
Okay, everybody good with that? Good with the recommendation?
Yep.
Doug, Dave?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Number 2.
So number 2, if we start out with the recommendation that's before you in the verbiage report is that we put through a 10% levy increase, and which would equate to an increase of $247 approximately if all other things are the same from 21 to 22 for each individual property, meaning that their assessment didn't change. And that is slightly different than what your budget documents, your detailed budget documents are showing, because those show a 7.67% increase. So in the analysis portion of the Word document, that is showing that you're starting off with less money for 22 over 2021 of $11,741. So that already equates to almost 0.6% levy increase right there. You had insurance costs that increased by just under $29,000. Propane costs increased by 37%, and we're estimating that the overall increase for that is around $23,000. You also had OMPF funding, which is your annual provincial funding that you get, that decreased by just under 14,000. So just those things alone are just over 77,000, almost 78, and that equates to a 3.7% levy increase. Just those things, those 4 items. In addition to those, you have increased fuel costs. Although they are coming back down, they're definitely not into where we were in 21. You have your regular human resource increases, your collective bargaining unit increases. You also have several retirements in 2022, which do result in some dual coverage as well as training costs. And that is not likely. Succession planning is going to be one of the biggest things that you're going to need to do for sustainability of your organization over the next 5 years. You do have the potential for some significant I was going to say overturn, but that's not the word I'm looking for. It escapes me at the moment. I will tell you, although a good news story is that collection efforts are incredible right now. I would say that our total arrears at this point in time is, and that's all interest, all years, is 356,000. So that's amazing, right? But with that, the flip side is that you are then budgeting for less revenue in your penalty and interest. But really, that is a good news story there. The flip side of that is if you have more money coming in and there's more collection, there's more money now that interest rates are also on the upswing. So there's, right, that is a good news bullet point. We're estimating most of the revenues as pre-pandemic averages, and that's the same for most of the expenses, because we are open and hopefully going forward and is going back to the normal. The big thing in here to remember is that, and why there's a difference between what the recommendation is and what the budget as presented is that the budget doesn't have anything in it for a transfer to reserve for capital infrastructure future needs. So you did have a service delivery review in 2015 that recommended a 2% levy increase, and you do have your newest asset management plan that is telling you that we should be putting 3% through. So this is to say that we need to be doing that.
Okay, I was sorry about the internet connection. It's off and on all over Ontario, the country for that matter today. We've got to keep forging ahead with our meeting here. Hopefully it keeps running. Okay.
It was pretty much finished with the Word document unless anybody had any questions. Otherwise we can go into the Excel document.
What page are you talking there?
The sheets, the hard copy sheets that are on there.
Okay.
I don't know if anybody wanted to, like I said, so those sheets that are prepared before you do not include any transfer to reserve at this point in time.
So 10% levy increase, whatever someone's tax bill was last year.
Based on 54,138 is the average assessed value.
What would the mill rate be?
What would the mill rate be?
What is it now, 4.5 approximately?
Approximately, yeah.
So it would be another almost 5%.
Yes. It would be, hold on. It would be 0.05001584 approximately.
Okay, so if the CVA on for a property was 100,000, just to make the math easier.
Yep.
your tax bill would be $5,000 approximately.
Right. Well, hold on, let me just do that. Yeah,
So last year
Why
it
not
would have been, 4,500. This year it's gonna be 5,000 on a $100,000 assessment value, correct?
yep.
Okay, so 10% increase on your taxes, bottom line.
That's substantial. That's substantial.
Yeah, I don't think we can do it.
I don't think you wanna do it.
Nor am I ready to do it. So, I mean, if we gotta go through this thing line by line, we will.
Yeah, I mean, I got some questions about some things in here, so.
I mean, this town is already, I mean, we're seeing a lot of good things and sure we had some hiccups along the way, but,
What was the increase a year ago?
I believe it was 2.49 or something like that.
Your levy increase was 2.49, yep.
2.5. So, how do you explain, I mean,
Inflation,
I
cost of things.
No, I got it.
7.7%,
It's
highest
huge.
it's been.
Yeah, no, I like,
Cost of living has gone up.
but I mean, we can, oh, no, I agree with that, Dan, but I mean, we're already in a tough situation, a lot of people.
It just means maintaining the status quo of what we have, what Marlene was explaining there, right, was
Yeah.
already,
Yeah.
like, and she wasn't even including, what was it?
I did.
Wages and fuel rate, and it was already at
Yeah,
so you say
So on 100
3.7%.
Sorry, Nathan, I'm sorry, but on a, it doesn't, so on $100,000 of assessment, if you put through the 10% levy increase, it's an additional $455 over,
last year's tax bill.
yeah.
Which is pretty close to 10%.
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry, didn't mean to turn. But did you want to go through, like Dave, you were saying that you do have some questions?
Yeah, I'm just looking at the capital works one.
I would, I think that is, if we could just, either that or come back to your admin. So what I would say, in your administration tab, you may have, there's a very little room in your operating budget for discretionary changes, right? And so you may have looked at the council section in there. So what I would say for your fees and conferences and your travel expenses, they are budgeted as they were in 2021. I did use the average from 15 to 18 for that. You will see that we budgeted 37 in 2021, and you only spent just over 10,000, almost 11. There may be room there, but that would, for 2022 and future years, to reduce some of that. It would just mean that you send less people to
That's what I
different
mean,
things.
like, couldn't we, like, considering what's going on, could we not just say CAO and one member of council goes to everything, that's it?
Yeah, I mean, I think you have room.
I think we've done that in the past.
Yeah, and what I would say, I didn't use 2019, because I think the total for 2019 was $57,000 spent on that, but you have to remember that 2019 would have been the first year of a new council, so there is training. What I think has changed from that era to this era, perhaps one of the benefits that will come out of the pandemic is that there's a lot of virtual that goes on now, so there is the opportunity for some savings in there, so that may be one area that you may wanna consider in there. The other is, the grant and aid section. You may want to, look at that, decrease that, remove that. And then the other question for this year was whether or not you were gonna do the seniors appreciation dinner or not. That has been included. And again, for this year, we have the, it is like every 4 years you do have the election costs that come on, so that's in there. That's something that's not normally in there. So I just wanted to point that out. We can go right to the capital if unless.
Sorry.
No, I had ticks by there, like with the travel and expenses, like, it was 71 last year, right?
Yeah.
And we budgeted 28 for it. Now we're budgeting 28 for it again, thinking we're coming out of the pandemic, hoping we're coming out of the pandemic. So why can't we go down, take that 28 and put it down to 18 right now?
I was gonna say 14.
Or, well, I just pulled that out of the air, but.
Yeah.
So why can't, so can we go through the whole thing?
You could go, you're more than welcome, it's your budget, you can go.
No,
through-
but I mean,
Like really,
I
like
mean,
seriously.
is
and
that getting anywhere with it, is my question.
So I would say like 1% is almost $22,000.
Well, we gotta
So
go
I,
through.
like, I think it's a good thing, but what I'm saying is that those are identified as items where you could potentially, but if you wanna make sure that when you're doing it, that just dropping the number, it means that you have to drop like behavior too, right?
Yeah.
So that it means like going forward, hey, we like you said, we're only going to send one person as opposed to 2 or 3 or whatever. Unless, I mean, really what I would say is if there's something really important that you need to have a collective presence at a minister's meeting, then of course you're gonna do that, right? Like that, but if it's generally just for conferences. So I was thinking combined between those two, the fees and conferences and the travel, yeah, I was thinking somewhere around 17 if you dropped it,
Yep.
right?
I think that's a good idea. For best practices, I think anything that's virtual, we take advantage of it and we do it as a virtual thing. If it is something that where we do want to have an in-person presence, it would be best just one counselor and myself. That way you are really saving quite a bit of money. I mean, the hotel, the conference fees, and just now with gas costs, we'll likely have to even revisit how much we're allocating even for these trips. So
Yeah,
those
so
may be some
this year
best practices.
we covered a lot of the conferences virtually. Like,
But hopefully we can, that's what they said, they're moving forward, there's gonna be a lot of virtual, but I'm not seeing a lot of virtual. Like,
But
I would love to go to the Ottawa one virtual, but they're not doing it virtually. Like, I mean, I guess we're gonna have to address the problems about that.
and then the other side of that is
There is some, but not all.
we could potentially have a whole new council in here next year.
Yeah, but they're gonna, I mean, if
looking
we,
for training.
But, and that might be, it may be, and I don't really know in detail what the training happens, but it might be cheaper to do in-house and advertise that you're doing it for like along your other communities along the North Shore, and you have people come here and do
Yeah, so there's ways.
I've been looking at several virtual programs for that, and some things that I could do internally, for instance, and it will also depend again on the composition of council come November, and there's a lot of new faces at the table, right? That would be additional training that would be required. So
there's different ways of doing it, so that's good.
that being said, again, as long as we try to push for things virtual, ask people if they can do virtual meetings, that's a significant amount of money that we can save in this area between fees, travel expenses. Did you say you wanted to drop the travel and expenses then to, what was it, 14, 17? I'm hearing different numbers.
saying 17 total between the fees and travel, or 17 for that one line? Marlene?
I was thinking, I mean, when I look at where we are right now, your fees and conferences, because part of that is your memberships,
Yeah.
right, are included in there, like that's at 4,000 right now, and your travel right now is only at 1,700. So I'm thinking, and no one's going to AMO, right?
No.
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 So, I mean, I wouldn't go too lean on it. I'm thinking maybe for fees and conferences, maybe drop that to 6. That gives you a little, and for the travel, I think you could probably drop that to 15,
Yeah.
even the fort, like really.
I mean, and like realistically, you guys did travel this past year. It's not like
Yeah.
you didn't, and it's still pretty cheap.
Yeah.
You didn't just, the big ones are the ones in Toronto and the one in Ottawa where
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
shelling out like $5,000 a person almost.
Yeah.
How much are we at right now for that GL?
For the travel?
Yep.
It's only like $1,700.
Okay, I think we could go with the 14 there then.
14 or 14? I just picked 14 because it was half.
I think you want to give it a little bit of room.
15.
15?
Okay, may as well keep going on down on this one, on the administration. I gotta agree with the grants in aid. I would drop that from 6 down to 3. Lots?
Yeah, I don't think we ever, in the history, have we ever came close to 6?
Yeah, we
Yeah.
spent
Yeah.
350 this year, that's it, 344.
Well, because people couldn't hold functions and stuff, right? For a
So-
while, like because of the community hall.
Do another 50% there.
Are we good with 3 then?
I'm fine with that.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
I would say in 2020 you did 2,000. In 2019 was $2,000. 18.
But is that because we had a big pot and it was a Christmas hamper and we said we're gonna give a bunch of money that year? I feel like we gave like $1,000 or something to the Christmas hamper.
In 19 it was $2,000 to Christmas hamper.
See,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
And
that's a
eight-
lot.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, 2018, it was 2,600 in total. 17, it was, you were pretty close in 17. You were at $5,800. So, and I think, and so what, again, what has evolved over those times is that there's right, there's an evaluation.
Yeah, we've
that
also
goes through.
probably gave out grant and aids to things that didn't qualify for grant and aids in
Potentially.
2017.
And I think, again, right, we're going back to, I think you're right, you do have I think you very easily have the room to drop it to 3, or really, at the end of the day, here's the example I would use. So you do consistently do the graduation and the Christmas for the school.
Yeah,
The best way, the easiest money for anybody that's listening is to do a bottle drive. You can clear $1,500 on a bottle drive. But people they have to want to go and do that, right? So that's my piece on that.
Yeah, this year, what was it? The high school used the red
So far,
ball
it's only the
twice,
high school, yeah.
correct?
But you do consistently, those 2 occasions are consistent
Yeah.
ones that you do, so yeah.
So I think
3,000?
Yeah. The next is the PR promotion. I'm,
Where would
I
all
don't know.
Where would all that money go?
Well, the majority of that, you do a physician recruitment that comes in there. You did do a Canada Day celebration that is in there. In previous years, you've spent it on your volunteer appreciation to the tune of $4,000 and newsletter printing of $2,000. This year you have your Discovery Center grand opening is costing you $3,600, and you did have Canada Day that, you have your all of your overtime for working on a stat. You had 4 positions that were working in there, so
did that cost?
Canada Day, I don't know, that those bills have not come in yet. I don't recall what that, I don't believe that the Canada, did it have a budget associated with the?
We did.
I know the cake was $300, I do remember that, and if you think
Yeah.
about your average
And your wage.
wage
The wage is
and
what
benefits.
The wages, what did the wages cost, do you think? On that bit? More
that-
people, overtime.
That was probably about $1,200 in wages.
Okay.
Where are we currently at right now? If you add the Canada Day
You're down to 6.8.
6.8.
Yep.
So there may be a bit of room. Would it be,
I guess I mean, why would there 4 staff there?
what was that? That would be the
4 staff for 3 hours? What was
Oh, no. No, you had 2 8 hours and
So I mean,
2, I think, were 4 hours.
I guess that,
And that includes the summer students?
one at a time,
8,
yeah.
yeah, 1.
yeah, like I guess
Any
it's
full-time
nice to
staff?
have something on Canada Day, however, that seems excessive to me, considering, well, what was the turnout that of people who actually showed up? Like my wife and daughter went and she said it wasn't very busy.
It was a good turnout.
It was a
Was it?
really
Oh,
good turnout, yeah. Yeah, it was, I was impressed.
So
I
it's worth
think-
it in the long run then?
I think that there
Right.
is room for I think there's room for improvement on an internal level,
I
for
guess,
sure.
yeah, I guess I'm
That's
just
what I
wondering,
would
what
say.
was each of these people doing for that allotted amount of time? Was it necessary? And I guess that's something to look
I mean,
at
you
going,
definitely-
going forward.
Going forward, I think that there is room for improvement, yeah.
Plus the senior committee, the senior center had a barbecue, and they made money on, they made good money on the barbecue, I know that.
So for that, what I would caution, and I have cautioned, your gross profits, so what I would say is the barbecues, yes, there is a profit that is made through all of those. But I believe potentially the information that was provided, what was provided to me, I had to reiterate that is your gross profit. That
Yeah.
doesn't take into consideration the cost.
The cost of the
The cost of
product.
your product.
Yeah,
And your wage.
And really the wage,
Yeah.
right? So, but yeah, I think that and again, at the end of the day, I've said this before, I'm gonna say it again, sometimes you put things on not because you're making a profit from it, but you're doing it to enhance your community, sense of community and stuff like that. But there's always room for efficiencies, right?
yeah, and there's also a grant available for Canada Day, is there not?
Yeah.
Canada Day, I think so.
Potentially, you know, and the tricky thing though is sometimes with these grants, the administration costs to apply,
Yeah,
do the
I-
reporting.
I know
if
they're not
it's-
easy, yeah.
If it's like $2,000 and, you know, we've spent, you know, a week
Yeah.
looking into this, it's just not worth it, right? It needs to be a big payoff for us to spend time on applying on these grants.
And the other, they're not always that. I know we're still waiting for, we put an application out for, what is it, Restarting Ontario? for Heritage Days that we still have no idea whether or not we've been approved
Yeah.
for the grant
Yeah.
yet. So it's a slow process
Yeah.
on that end too, right?
Yeah,
So
what I
sometimes
understand-
you have to plan,
Yeah.
hope for the best, expect the
And-
worst.
And it's not easy to apply. Once, if you're approved, it's difficult to apply at times if it's delayed like that. Because your expenses, you can't expect, have an expense and then apply to the grant after the event, correct? Is that how it is?
In many cases, it's like that. And sometimes they say, okay, here's the kind of go ahead before we finalize the contribution agreement. But in other times, you have to wait till that contribution
Yeah.
agreement comes,
And
because
that's
without
true.
that contribution agreement, there's no guarantee you're getting any money.
Yeah.
So what do you want to put the PR promotion at? What do you think would be a decent amount? Or you can drop that?
Well, I guess after hearing that conversation, I'd drop it to 14. I wouldn't drop it drastically.
Yeah, I don't think.
I don't think you can.
Pardon?
I don't think you can until you improve things that are going on,
I think you may be able
like
to.
next year. you
Yeah,
know?
but I'd drop it to 14 right now.
Yeah.
I think we'd be safe there.
Fish
I
supper.
think sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
I was just gonna say the fish supper, have we ever had one?
You didn't you do it, usually it's on the even year, so the last one was in 2018, you couldn't do it in 2020 because of the
Yeah.
pandemic. So it would have been 2022 that you would do it. Generally, it's done in June, it's a seniors appreciation dinner
Okay.
is what it is.
Yeah.
Dave used
June
to
is
do
Seniors
it.
Month, right?
I had a conversation with somebody and I can't remember who it was with, and we decided we weren't doing this year.
Yeah, that's
Because
fine.
we're coming out of the pandemic, still coming out of the pandemic, and
There's a new
it's
wave
for the
going on.
seniors, and we didn't want to put anybody at risk.
Yeah.
Well, that's fair.
I think we've put significant investment also in our, senior
So,
center, and the senior center keeps on
That could
looking
be
for
zero,
grants
right?
in order to put together more sort of events like this, so I think we're
yeah.
more covered now.
Yeah, and they will do their lunches whenever that's possible.
And is that a common number for the Christmas party?
That is a common number.
Keep in mind that there's a revenue stream discounting it on top.
What does
So
it end
the
up costing?
Price is right now
on average?
$5K net.
Okay. So it usually costs us about
$5,000.
$5,000. Is that because, yeah.
I don't know the average.
I would say that generally the largest cost is your catering, right? So if you're looking for anything right now, we haven't increased our minimal cost to purchase a ticket, right, to attend. But the cost of catering is probably on average about $35 a plate.
Okay, so I don't want to sound like rude or anything about the Christmas party, but just because you volunteered at one event, should you get invited to the town-wide Christmas party? To me, that makes 0 sense. And I could be the only one who thinks that, but that makes no sense to me. Like, Danelle got invited because we bartended one year at Heritage Days. Why?
I think council has control over that, like
Yeah,
really,
like
because
that-
you guys get you get the invitation list, right? And so I think that's where you guys can control that as well. I would also suggest, really, increasing the ticket cost. Because
When I think of a Christmas party, I think of it for staff. Am I wrong to think that?
I agree with that, for sure.
Right?
With a lot of places that I've worked at, typically the Christmas party, and this is some of the feedback from staff members too, is it's a free event put on for staff.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how I think of it.
But
I would rather spend $3,000 and treat our staff than spend $5,000 and treat half the town.
then how do we recognize our volunteers?
We say thank you.
Say thank you. Well, I mean, a lot
Because
of
it's a volunteer.
these committee members put in a lot of time and energy to be on a committee.
I agree, but that's their
So they
choice.
should be recognized. So we're gonna have to figure out how to recognize them if you don't wanna invite them to the Christmas party. I feel they need to be recognized, because we're struggling right now to get people to even volunteer for our committees.
I agree with that.
I agree, but still.
No, it's a hard balancing act for, I know
You're
what
still a
you're
volunteer.
saying, but it's,
Yeah.
You're choosing to do it
but-
out of the kindness of your heart.
But again,
you're
where do you,
Why do you expect something
where
that
do you draw the line? Again, yeah, and I
makes
agree
no
to your-
sense?
I agree to your point, where do you draw the line? But,
That's not a volunteer, that you're paying them to do something.
no, you're not paying them, you're recognizing.
Well, we're spending money and then they get the benefits, so.
I think where, I think you have the control, like with that invitation list and the parameters, of how the invitation happens. Financially speaking, the council did attempt to do the volunteer appreciation, and it was not a well-attended event. It was extremely costly, so I would suggest not going back to that avenue where you do both. I think that would be, and I think, what I interpret that is, the majority of people who are volunteering because they want to volunteer, right? That's why you didn't have the attendance out of your volunteer appreciation event, right? That, I don't know how many people ended up, it was, 13 comes to mind, but,
Yeah.
so, that's what I would suggest, is that you continue to, recognize people at the Christmas party, but you don't go over and above, and you control it by saying, okay, is it a because, if that is the issue that.
I think it should just be committee members then, not anyone who helped out ever.
Right.
Like those committee members, 100%, sure, bring them to the Christmas party, but
And that's an existing list.
yeah, but that list also has people who did one-offs.
Yeah.
And, they helped out at this, we gotta send them an invite, and then they show up, and then they're.
But that might be the incentive for people to join the committees as well, right?
Yeah, but not every volunteer
What
should
would
get an invite, and that would cut the cost dramatically.
And the other side of that is, not everybody likes going to the Christmas party.
Yeah.
I understand. So, if we can figure out a better way to recognize our volunteers or our committee members, whichever way you want to put it, rather than invite them to the Christmas party. And if that's acceptable to the volunteers, then maybe that's a different way we can do it. And it might be more cost effective.
And I think it's a difficult thing, because, there's always been this debate over the cost, whether it's volunteer or staff. It's like, I don't want to pay into coming there, but it's tricky, right? Because we're trying to also leverage a better thing here, and we need some. If we were doing the full like 8,500 without the revenue to discount it, that 3,500 revenue, right?
Yeah.
That's just hugely expensive then at that point.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's the other side of it for sure.
this is a difficult one to find that sort of compromise. But again, we're pinching pennies here.
so we can leave that one at
We'll revisit.
85 for now,
I
and
agree. Leave it, and
we definitely gonna have to have this conversation.
Yeah.
In
it's
the
not an
future.
easy one.
You think you could, what if you took a year off from this Christmas party?
Well, we have for the past.
We have
few
two
years.
or three now,
Yeah.
and possibly another one, the way
Yeah.
I'm listening to the news this morning.
With the new wave. Yeah.
Anyway, sticking with the same document, is everybody okay with that? Leave it at the same for
Yeah.
now, and sticking with the same document, I got, my next tick is way down at the end, bylaw enforcement at the very end, bylaw control contract. What, What's that one about, Mary?
So that is your bear trapping fees and your,
Well,
other animal control.
Like pigeons?
Yeah, sure. Which it seems to be pretty effective.
Yeah.
I do see that there's, like, for whatever reason, like, things are going pretty good there. I don't
So,
notice them badly.
So that's
Is
just
there any
dependent
room
on how
there?
many bears are in town, basically. That number.
I think that for 2023, and I'm not sure if I think I would keep that at there. Again, it depends on what type of a year we have, for the bear portion of it. And I would say that part of the other animal control section, I'm just trying to see how much we've spent on that already, so just give me 1 second here, because I'm thinking that was around the $1,500 mark, is that right, Tammy? Or that,
For the bear control?
pigeons,
Oh, for the pigeons. Yeah, it was,
that
yeah,
was around $1,500.
yeah.
So I wouldn't, did you say we needed an additional?
Well, I've been monitoring it. I have seen a couple pigeons around, but not hanging out excessively in any one location. So I think the treatment was effective. I would recommend making another treatment in the spring again, or if we see an increase over the summer months, do one in the fall.
okay, so we may not have to do another 1,500 this year. That means everyone has to be okay with the pigeon for the rest of the year.
Was it 15? It seems to me it was more around the $1,000 mark.
I'm trying to look to see how come it's.
That's what stumped me, is 15 seemed high.
Marlene, Marlene, do you have the numbers from like the past 3 years of how much we spent in that?
For the bears?
On that line item? Like, so what was that line item expense in 2019?
I created that this year, only to keep things so that it was a little, okay, no, it's about $1,500 for the pigeon thing to answer
Okay,
that first question.
thanks.
Okay, sorry.
And so, the last couple years, let me see.
So if I can just elaborate on your pigeon thing then, that treatment was 5 locations around town. If we beat some of the locations and decrease it to, like, say 3 locations, we can drop that cost quite a bit.
Yeah.
Okay.
I am thinking though it probably is gonna be a yearly thing, just because
They,
new pigeons come
yeah,
in from
they come
the
in on the train apparently. They kind of follow the grain.
I'm thinking dropping that, my train of thought on that is dropping that from 5 to 3 is the room. And you wanna know about the bears, right?
Yeah, I'm just
Past
thinking
3,
our
4
worst
years.
bear
Yeah.
year was probably 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah, and that'll let us know.
Yeah.
But we've only started to contract the bear.
Oh,
control
right,
stuff
right, because we
out.
used to do that internally.
We did it
Correct.
internally.
Yes.
Yeah, so
Okay.
honestly,
Right,
we've been
right.
very fortunate since we've been contracting it out.
So why can't we do it internally?
You need to have somebody who is,
Train.
Training,
trained,
education.
M&R trained.
They're retired.
Is that difficult to do, if it makes sense, and is cost effective?
I think that's a discussion, probably for an in-camera, when you're talking about personnel and training and stuff
Yeah.
like that, that's probably what that is.
Sorry.
But again, I mean, so if you're gonna be Pollyanna, for 2022, I believe that we should keep that where we have it right now. I don't, where am I here, in 2021, if I can find this quickly, I can tell you that we paid. I think it was less than $700, I think, that we paid for bear trapping. Like, it wasn't bad at all.
You get paid by the bear, or?
No.
Hourly.
No, generally it's our people that, once the trap has been set, it's our people that go to monitor it, cause it has to be monitored, and then if we get something, then we call them in and they charge us, they use our vehicle to transport it
Right.
away. So, yeah, I would say like we're anticipating the budget of the $5,000. You're gonna use the 3 of that if you do a spring and a fall, other
Yeah.
animal control thing in there, so I think that's leaving you a little bit of a buffer in the event that it is going to be a bad. I have seen evidence of bears around. I have yet to see, there's at least a mother with a couple cubs down at the beach road, because other people have seen the cubs.
But not the mother, no one's seen the mother.
I've seen, there was one up at the top of the hill, an adult bear.
Yeah. I've seen
And
one.
there's at least one traveling around.
Yeah,
So, I mean, they're around, and what I was saying about Pollyanna thing is, there looks to be that it's going to be a good year in the bush for berries and stuff like that. It might be a little bit later, like I'm thinking, but, that's
Yeah.
my prediction, my almanac prediction.
I think there's lots to eat.
So, that might be a good thing, right? We may not have anything until later in the fall when everything is gone.
Yeah. I haven't seen those cubs for probably a month.
Oh, so maybe they haven't,
They're-
who knows, right?
Yeah.
So we got room to drop it to 4?
I would keep it at the 5, but it's your decision on what.
Guys?
I don't care about that.
Yeah, I
They don't
think,
care about that one?
yeah, that's cool, I would say, or see what happens this year.
4 or 5.
Okay, that's it for me on that, on the administration document. Anybody else got anything on the administration
I'm a
document?
little curious about the legal fees here with expenses.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I mean, it was, the year before, it was 30,000, and I see it actually was 23, but,
Is that all the bills this year, or is
It
there
is
more to
gonna
come?
be expensive.
There's gonna be more to come.
I would say that this year is going to be, I think you may,
Go over.
go more higher than that.
and what's
Because-
causing that,
It'd be in camera discussions, right?
Yeah, what those items are. But I would, like, right now, you're over 20 grand. You're at 21,401.
Mm-hmm.
So
okay.
you are very likely to hit your 30.
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay, which document do we want to go next? Try and keep it.
I got a bunch
Yes.
of things on the Capital Works one.
I was gonna say, I think,
Cause
like,
like,
everything else is pretty
yeah,
standard.
that's what like every other thing, it's like, again, I don't know where you're gonna pinch pennies on the other stuff, cause it's all
Yeah.
wages and things like that, right?
Oh,
You got some?
I got some stuff here.
Okay.
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 Well, did you wanna go to those, or they?
Well, okay, you can go to the municipal buildings.
Okay.
And down at the fire hall. Supplies.
What's causing that?
What's the big difference there?
They had to have already in 22, they had to have heaters changed. They had to have the floor drains pumped out, and they had HVAC issues.
Okay, and municipal complex, part-time wages.
That is, there's been a change in the distribution of hours. So there will be more hours allocated here to reflect, how the hours during the week are going. So whereby it was distributed between different buildings, allocated differently, the percentages of time, overall time, were distributed differently. It's being allocated more to this building, so it would be less in other
Those
buildings.
yeah.
Oh, yeah. So it's less in the fire hall, it's less.
The library is
Yeah.
different, the fire hall is
Yeah.
different.
Okay.
That equipment and maintenance line, how come we used so little in that last year?
So that is a general operating if things go wrong. So that was a good news story that in 2021, we didn't have equipment failures or anything like that in the building. But we did, what I will say for 2022, we have had a $12,000.
HVAC thing, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
so.
Okay. And that one much too. Anybody else on that one?
The vested properties, the supplies.
So that is, we have to factor in what it cost us for the, auction in the end, because none of that got paid in 2021, it finalized in January of 2022, so there's a bit.
Gotcha.
Okay, and the next one is volunteer fire department. I haven't got anything on it.
You don't.
I don't. Does anybody else?
I don't.
Okay, cemetery. I'm confused. With the increase.
Okay, so, for 2022, we had, so your Canada Summer Jobs there was more funding available in 2021, so basically they were giving you more money to try to get people working and do all that stuff. So the program itself has been, reduced. So it's 50% funding and they only fund up to 8 weeks. That's all that we were approved for. So for that, that's the differences for the summer student and the summer student expenses and the federal revenue stream. Our fees and charges is, the average revenue on that is $3,000. That's, and the majority of the fees and charges, majority of the usage in the cemetery is cremation. That is the trend overall. The odd time we do get full burials, which would increase it a bit, but it really is dependent on the need, right? Full-time wages, it's kind of a standard that we do in there. That is just our public works employees. And again, that is dependent on the type and the number of usage. Supplies we've had to increase because we do have to do curbing. The curbing was actually part of that 2021 budget amount, but it did not get completed in 2021. So those curbing costs to do the remaining available full burial lots is included in there at $3,850. We have annual maintenance and operator licenses of almost $1,000. I've got topsoil in there at $1,100, and I know we do have some. Potentially, there may be some tree removal in there, so that's what that is for. There's some very
But this, okay,
necessary maintenance efforts that have to get put in there.
okay, but is there not a cemetery, what word am I looking for, a cemetery fund?
There is a trust.
Trust.
You're only allowed to use the interest for maintenance. You cannot ever take the principal out of that trust. Why that's like that, I don't know. Again, that's a question for the higher powers that be.
No adjustment to that account of interest rates at all.
No,
Yeah, so pretty lean years.
yeah.
Your 7,000 actually might not even be enough for the maintenance that you have to do in the cemetery at this point.
Another question too, like in regards to expenses with, like at the cemetery, it shows $5,000, but Public Works is over $500,000. They're the ones that, like, so we've got wages for them here and we got wages for them on here, like, I don't understand that.
Right, so you budget your wages based on your positions and the hours that they work.
I mean, regardless,
Sure.
Public Works works Monday to Friday. I mean, and they do whatever they have to do, like unless they're working in a cemetery on the weekend or something, like.
I don't understand your question.
Well,
So when you're,
here at cemetery, it says wages, full-time, and you've got $5,000. Like, who's getting that money if he doesn't work for Public Works?
well, so you have an allotment for each position that you have, and then that total gets distributed amongst a whole bunch of different wage accounts for that. So for instance, your Public Works department will get distributed amongst your cemetery, your roadside maintenance, your hydrant repairs, your water system, your collection system. It will get distributed. Some of it goes through your recycling costs because we do recycling pickup. Like that total amount for those positions is then distributed amongst these different departments. So your Public Works staff works 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, right? So that's 80 hours a year. So you factor in the costs, your employer-related costs, your benefit cost, all of that, and then that all gets distributed amongst the rest. So it's not that somebody else is getting paid that money. It is being calculated as a whole for the year and then distributed.
I don't know, I just think if it's all under Public Works, that covered whatever jobs they're doing, whatever day they're doing.
It's divided into the certain areas. So when they do their time entry, if they spend, let's just say they spend 1 hour at the cemetery, you'll put that 1 hour at this GL here, this line item here, and that's where it will be captured.
Okay.
It's just the nature of accounting that we have to do because of, FIR and all. We have to allocate the expenses into certain functions instead of just doing it as, it would be very easy to do a nice lump sum, but Province wants to see it in the different areas.
Okay, move on to, everybody done, okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay. Move on to economic development and,
I have sanitation and landfill.
I didn't have anything.
No? You still want to pick up recycling? You still want to pick up recycling?
We have, unfortunately, I shouldn't say unfortunately, we have to.
That's
2023 is mandatory.
legislated.
Pick it up? Oh, I didn't know that. Cool, okay, moving on.
I had that TIC down last night. Tourist Information Center. SS.
Summer students.
We got 4 of them?
No, there's 3.
3 of them.
3 of them, and that's the cost of the 3 of them?
Yep,
That's
3
good.
summer students, 10 weeks, 35 hours a week. And then you'll see that
And
there
that's
is,
50%, right?
that is a 50%, yeah.
What about LNG?
That is what has been committed for that liquid natural gas project, so the council, oh God, I don't remember when the resolution was, do I have it in here? No. Committed so many dollars out of their NWMO Community Revitalization Fund. That project, although it seems to be almost stagnant, there is still a portion of it that has been committed, so it's in here to say you're still committed to that money.
In case we need it.
Yeah.
So.
Until we find, I don't know if
Until we
anybody will
know.
ever know what the end result
Yeah,
is yet,
So we
but
don't know.
there were, you can see that there was very little that was billed to us in,
Yeah.
cause that's Marathon that's taking the lead on that one for
Just-
2021, but.
They're still looking for money, right? So
Yeah,
if they
so-
find money, they're happy to go, and then
Then
we'll have to pay
we
this
have to
remaining
commit it.
amount.
Yeah, I get it. Okay.
Was there any wiggle room in the training? And these were all really much, these are all averages, right? The training, association conferences, and travel, and a website.
Website, I would keep it where it was, because were you not talking that you may be changing things on that? So you may have to pay your Google or something like that, you were saying?
Yeah, that would be, oh, we'll have to see which account that will go to, yeah. Travel, there would be some in there already, eh?
Yeah.
There's not much wiggle room, eh, with travel, association fees and training?
No.
No, eh?
Are you okay with that then?
Yeah.
Okay, the waterfront, the water fund, sorry.
That's already done. You guys passed your water and sewer way back
Okay.
in November.
Okay.
Okay. And sewer. Public Works, anybody got anything on that one?
So we had a lot of snow this year. And that's a year thing, I guess, eh, like, we budgeted 20,000 in 2021 and it's almost double. Not much we can do there, I guess, because the costs have gone up. Prepare for the worst.
So what I would say is that we do, like I said, we budget those positions, right, based on the full year. There is a component that is factored in for potential overtime. And I would say, what I will tell you is for 2021, we were almost right bang on with what we budgeted. And again, you were at the mercy of Mother Nature
Yeah,
when you're
we
looking
got a lot
at
of
things.
snow, so we gotta get a lot of snow this year.
Yeah, we were, so for all of the accounts that we budget for that department, we were over by just under $1,800. So.
consideration.
The arena is always a huge one, eh?
Yeah.
Under expenses, Heritage Days, that's 0?
For 2021?
For 20, no,
For 22, so
Yeah.
so for your committee, your rec committee stuff, they do not generally budget a like a profit or a loss. We don't budget revenue or expense because ultimately, you'll see on our agenda for today, we have the transfers to and from depending on whether the event had a surplus or a loss.
gotcha, okay. That was my only question.
Figure skating, that jumped this year.
The expense, or which one are you talking, for revenues?
Okay, oh, sorry,
Probably
I'm in the wrong
revenue.
area.
You were talking about revenues.
Yeah, revenue, yeah.
So what I did for the revenues, now that we are crossing our fingers and we're gonna be back to normal, was I used the average from the 15 to 18 for the arena, like the arena revenues.
Yeah, so that's.
And again, there's always that, there is always that caution, right? You don't know. But a budget is a point in time estimate. I think we're fair enough to
Yeah.
say that we're going back to,
Back to normal.
yeah.
So the cost for this arena season would be, well, based on an opening date. Are we based on mid-November or earlier?
These are based on the, like, I think it's the November, somewhere around the middle of November, first
Yep.
week to mid, like the 7th to the 14th, somewhere in there,
Okay.
for startup. I don't believe that there's been any,
And we
communication
closed-
with the contractor. I don't think about startup times or whatever, but certainly we would continue with the November startup,
Okay.
not an early season by any stretch of the imagination.
And this year we closed. was it
April something.
April, okay.
April 3rd?
Yeah, we extended it 2 weeks.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, we might have to look at a different way to save some money.
On
Arena.
on the arena. Like, how much does it cost to extend it by 2 weeks?
I think it was actually extended a little bit longer, because our estimation actually was, based on I think it was the first weekend in March. I'd have to go back and look, but I think it was based on the first weekend in March. I think it's important to decide what it is that you're gonna do, even though the impact is really in 2023 for the second half of the 22-23 season. And
So is it not easy enough to just contact the main user group and ask when their competitions are so they don't,
that is what it was
like,
supposed to
how
happen.
hard is that?
Yeah, that's what.
Like, it doesn't seem like rocket science to me.
Yeah.
I think what happens is.
Because that's why it got extended, because it would have closed the weekend that all the girls were out of town, so they couldn't do their ice show.
I do believe for the 2021-2022 season, it was decided, I'm gonna say somewhere end of September, early October, that the information was supposed to be communicated to the user groups. From
But isn't
a
that-
top level.
Yeah, but is it not easier just to have a discussion before saying this is when it's closing?
I don't know whether or not, there was any feedback at that
Okay.
point in
I
time.
just-
So I think it's important to have the conversation.
I think
in
the
August.
conversation needs to happen because you don't want to upset the biggest revenue of our arena.
Yeah,
Because they have another arena 14 kilometers away.
yeah.
And then that sucks.
And I think it comes down to making the decision and sticking with the decision, right? As long as you have all of the information.
But it needs to be a collaborative, sort of,
Exactly.
not unrealistic decision. And I think that's super doable.
Yeah, because your contracts, before anybody steps on the ice for 2022 in each new arena season, their bills are supposed to be paid up, which I can tell you they are before they get on the ice. So everyone, all user groups, when they start their new season, cannot be in arrears, right? That's the first thing. The second thing is, those contracts are supposed to be signed and the contracts indicate what they are using. So all of that needs to be completed. So if the process is followed properly, all of it should be very smooth, right? So again, in the past, it used to be in early September that those conversations were happening, which makes sense because you've got people coming back from summer holidays, right? In my head, the new year begins in September because that's when school all starts, like, you know what I mean, the cycle starts again, right? And then your user groups are finding out what's really happening for everything, right? I mean, and you can predict, I would guess, for, you know, it's kind of like an estimate of like who's gonna come back, who moved on, blah, 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 and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
But yeah, I agree with you. I think that we do need to make sure we have that. I think there should be a meeting. Back in the day, there was actual in-person meeting that took place with the user groups.
I just think from a budgeting standpoint, from everyone involved, that's just easier.
Yeah,
It's just way easier.
yeah,
Because then there's no excuse, everyone knows exactly what's going on, there's no chance of miscommunication,
Yeah.
it is what it is, and then we don't have to change our closing date again.
and I would come down, I would say at this point in time, if everyone's okay with an end of March closing date, I don't have my.
But the user groups also need to understand the costs involved.
Yeah.
I mean, that's.
But that's why I think a conversation.
Yeah, I agree that needs to happen.
It just would help for, and then we can budget for when Simcoe comes and does all the stuff, or when our guys have to shut this thing down and start like.
I think collectively, if the table right now is saying that, yeah, we want to accommodate, we don't want to go with dropping our season down to either the first week of March or the middle of March, we want to go till the end of March, then I think that I don't have a calendar.
Well,
Then I think we're good with that.
If it's accommodating to start a week later in November and go a week longer, then that seems like simple to me,
Yep. Yep.
right? But like
Do you have your phone? I don't know
We
what
need to see.
I'm thinking 2023, like if you're thinking your start date, your open is gonna be the 14th, right? Because it's about 10 days to put ice in.
Looking at, what do you need to see? November?
What's March of 23?
March?
I never remember which way the calendar moves.
the 31st is a Friday,
As the Friday, and so Easter is the 7th, I'm guessing, yeah.
Easter's the 7th.
So really, if we say that, you know, our season is gonna be the 15th of November, or the 14th of November to,
April 3rd again.
yeah, say the 2nd, right? Then I think that is clear, if that's what we're deciding, right?
That's just a suggestion, it just makes it easier to budget things for everybody
I think
involved.
it's easier for planning.
Yeah.
So if we can tentatively say that that's where we're going right now, and then we can reach out to the user groups to say, I think I wouldn't, regardless of what the ask is, I would not suggest going any further than the 2nd of April, simply because it does, as it warms up, it costs you more money, right? Blah, blah, blah. But it's to ask whether or not that is if they're going to need it that way,
Yeah,
right?
because then if they don't, then okay, we'll open it up a week earlier and we'll
I
close
think,
it a
I
week
think we
earlier.
use that as a tentative schedule, and then, we should be asking for maybe not, we're into July already, so maybe for the first meeting in September to get a report that says what are each of the user groups asking for in the month of March. And then we can make a final decision in September of what your season's gonna be. That makes sense to me, right?
Yep.
So if you come back and it's like only, we have one thing, there's nothing going on for 3 weeks in March, but we want something at the end of March, then you can make that decision of whether or not.
Yeah.
Right? That sound good to everybody? Makes sense?
Yeah, no, it makes sense, but I'm sitting here thinking, we have to, I mean, I'm not gonna be a favorite for this, but we gotta think about a way that, we gotta change the way we do business up at the arena, because we got nobody to work other than our full-time. We got nobody taking on the FOS positions. We're struggling every weekend. People don't show up for work on the weekends. Then we're black. Then we're in trouble.
It'll be a conversation already.
I believe so, where I'm going with it, yeah. So I think we gotta have a conversation about how that place is operated.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Fair?
Fair, yeah, yeah. Moving on to the library.
Yep. I didn't have anything on that. Nobody else? And miscellaneous? And then the last sheet that I got anyway is the fiscal. So that would be the revenue that you got highlighted there, Marlene, and
At the top, that's your starting point, yeah.
That's your revenue you can get from the assessed value.
From a 0% levy increase, that's it.
Right.
That's how you calculate it based on, and then your ratios you can see like in the actual and the 21 budget is in different sections, but that is dependent on your levy and your ratios, so.
And that's what went down, and that went down this year.
Right. So again, on where I was, in the beginning where I was talking about the revenue, where we're budgeting less revenue for interest earned, penalty and interest earned, like that's where this is on this page. On here, and again, on here, there isn't really anything in the revenue section. What I would say for your expense section, that right off of current taxes amount is budgeted to be less. That has to do with your minutes of settlement or ARB decisions or class changes or anything like that that are happening, that happen mid-year, because those changes do get reflected every year into your new assessment roll. That also, if the township vests in any properties through tax sale or anything like that, and we break the taxes off subsequent to vesting, that's where that would all fall into place. So there's been a significant reduction in that estimate for the year due to the improved collections, the successful tax sales that have occurred, as well as just collection and overall. Right now I have only 2 properties that were registered in 2022. So again, we're doing very well on on the collection and the arrears. And the stuff at the bottom are all the levies that are from your outside bodies that you don't have any control over, what you pay for your DSAB or your social housing, ambulance, health unit, that type of thing going on.
That CPR acreage number there, is there something in writing that states that it cannot be increased?
Yes, the rate is legislated by the province.
Right.
Okay, now, unless I missed it somewhere, or maybe it's not in there, probably not in there, it's, the sales that we're doing now, for the houses,
It's in the admin tab at the revenue.
And then the other revenue. 73 or something.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And that you did only for past sales, not, did you allocate anything for?
Anything that has been approved by council has been,
Yeah,
including the most recent one.
didn't put any estimates in for, how long ago.
No.
So are we looking at capital? Is that something you wanted to look at?
Yeah, I had some questions.
I think that is the, right, so what I will say with all of the changes that, have come in, we are at, 6.68, and again, that's without any transfer to reserve for future capital requirements.
Okay. So that's not including any of the things on this capital works list?
The 6.68 does include
Does include.
everything as presented there.
There, okay.
Yeah.
So, questions. I guess my first question about this was the swim raft from the rec reserve, that's where?
That would,
Out at the White Sand
Yeah.
Beach.
So, again, sounds like a great idea, but would that money not be better served on the deleted tables that could be used in our community hall?
Tables had not been identified as a, the tables were on there because they were something that had been identified previously, but we were successful, I don't recall if it was in 21 or 20, through the special grant.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I'm just confused why we're using our reserve for a swim raft in White Sand.
It was put in there, or it has been over the years on there. I think it was in 2018, I'm thinking, that the dock that was out at White Sand was no longer usable, 17 or 18. And it was something that was identified in previous years.
Is that a safety thing or something?
Well, when it was removed, it was a safety issue.
So it's gone, there's nothing there
There
right
is
now.
there has
So
been
have we
nothing
got,
there.
have we got like a list of complaints saying where's the swim raft?
There was something along the lines of that. Do you?
Here's
I
a
recall
few.
one person.
I've gotten one call.
Okay.
Okay, so,
You.
again, I'm just wondering why are we spending $5,000 on this thing?
It was identified from your recreation department and has continued to be, as the boiler in this place has been repeatedly on your wish list. That's,
So,
Yeah.
yeah, but in a year where we're starting out behind the 8 ball already, why are we pulling money from a reserve for a swim raft? It doesn't make sense to me.
I just highlighted it. Maybe you want to go through a couple other ones and maybe
Yeah,
yeah.
come back to finally decide which ones you want to
Okay.
chirp and.
So that's my first one. On that page, is it? You want me to keep going?
Sure.
Yeah, okay, cool. So I guess I have a question about GPS, the security cameras. I guess my first question is, again, why? Like, what's the yearly cost associated with this? And then, is this gonna save us money in the long term? Like, are our insurance rates gonna drop drastically because we're spending 20 grand right now?
Good question. So, I'll let Tammy answer for the year-round cost, but I did have a chat with insurance and said, will this reduce your liability rate? And the conversation we're having is that it's becoming more or less the norm for municipalities to have GPS and dash cams. And a big portion of that is, even with potential recent claims that we've had, all that we have to fall back on is logbooks, and that simply doesn't cut it. You know, if the statement is there were icy conditions on the road, we have no way to prove it unless we're able to prove it that we have the footage that shows we went out at this time, and this is the GPS proof that we were in the spot at this time, and the GPS will show which routes we did and covered. So that provides a very strong evidence and defense when it comes to any liability claims that people may bring up. So what insurance basically said is, you know, with the rising cost of insurance, they're not expecting to reduce our premiums. I said, if we do this year, would you reduce your premium? They said no, but they said it will help you if there's any of these small liability claims or bigger ones that pop up where as long as we continue in this era of joint and several liability, there's always a risk that any of these claims may pop up, and you need to go 5 years without any claims in order for them not to put a substantial spike in your insurance coverage. So that's the
Yeah, but I
Insurance
could ask insurance that if I put a camera in my car, is it gonna reduce my liability if something happens? And they're gonna tell me the same answer. That doesn't make sense. So it's not saving us money, is the moral of the story.
I think that there's a bit of a I think there's a difference between a commercial enterprise with a fleet versus your personal dash cam in liability risk. I mean, we've seen the numbers of whether it's a formal claim on, or the threat of have increased over the years significantly.
So, okay, so what would the yearly cost of this be?
What's your annual, if regardless of the startup, what's the annual maintenance on it?
The annual maintenance will be $8,000 as monitoring.
Monitoring is $8,000.
That's just for the
all-
GPS?
Yeah,
or-
so it's $86 per vehicle.
Okay,
You
and
said
then,
$1,000?
Yeah, so for the year, so it's $86 per month per vehicle. So when you add all of the monitoring for the year, you would be looking at $8,000.
and then how much have we shelled out in liability claims over the last
You know what?
3-4 years?
Sorry, oh yeah, okay. Sorry, what was that?
Like how much have we shelled out in the last 5 years in liability claims?
Well, comes down to premium.
Yeah, it usually we usually spend our deductible looking into investigations. That being said, right, this is sort of like an insurance policy. It may save you from a what you say frivolous claim, because it says it really unfortunately has the.
But in the township of Schreiber, how often does that actually happen?
I don't think you want, you're not, so I think you need, we may need to want to have that conversation.
It's not a cheap expense.
It is,
And our fleet is aging, so we're gonna have to, like, some of these trucks are,
you can't just look
This
at the
is
$5,000
transferable.
deductible as a payout. You have to look at the value of the payouts on the claims that we have had, and they are significant. So that's pretty much all that you can talk about in an
Yeah,
open session, right? But we're, so when you look at, okay, well, we paid a $5,000 deductible because for whatever, and you want to look at how much that increases the premium that you're paying overall. And it does come down to, okay, what did they assess the responsibility on the township part in what we've been, in the ones that we have had to pay, and in the ones where the potential litigation that's in there.
yeah, but either way, aren't we paying that deductible of $5,000, and then we would be paying it on top of that
And then your premium
8,000?
goes up.
Your premium will go up substantially. They're just looking for one excuse to increase it. Like, for instance, we had no claims beyond, there was a bit of a settlement that we had to deal with, but beyond that, we had no claims, and they increased our insurance by 30 grand.
Yeah, but that was like across the board, right?
They're just looking, though, for any potential reason to increase it. And right, our handy transit, that they increased that insurance with it by 10 grand this year. And they use an example outside of town, you know, as their reasoning. So, and that was just 10 grand for a situation that happened in Ottawa. They use that as justification to increase our insurance by that amount. So this is more or less just a precaution. Think of it as an insurance policy that prevents your premium from going up, because we'll be able to use information to our benefit.
I get that.
Yeah.
However, this budget that we have
Yeah.
doesn't lead me to think we should be doing this.
At this point, if the situation ever arose that you would have to go to court, you would most certainly lose without this kind of data and footage. Currently, we are not meeting minimum standards. So we're on dangerous ground.
So when we
This
get,
will also help us control a lot of the excess hours that we're using the equipment, the inefficiencies of the equipment sometimes. This will help us control and make everything much more efficient and cover ourselves in the event that claims come through.
well, how do you explain to reduce hours?
It provides evidence, right, in terms of how we utilize the vehicles and all. For instance, the information on the tracking will show exactly which vehicles go where, and
We
you
have-
can utilize that data.
We have 3 guys.
Yeah.
How much more efficient can 3 guys be?
It's
Like,
not.
that's a real
Yeah.
question, like,
Yeah.
there used to be how many that used to do it? Like, you would know, Mooney, like, how more efficient can these 3 guys be?
No, it's a tough road, that's for sure, for 3 guys.
We can certainly make some changes in the overtime that's being incurred. There will always be overtime for snow removal, but there's certainly areas where we can cut some of that overtime. And you can justify that when you have footage that says that we are still within the minimum standards before it needing to be cleared.
And who monitors all this equipment?
The GPS and camera?
Yeah.
It is a website, so it's the website fee, and it would be like if I installed it on my computer, for example, I
You'd
can
be
see where
looking
all
at
of
it.
the vehicles are going, and it shows me a picture as well of what's being removed. The weather monitoring is something else that would be beneficial on the cameras, because minimum standards does say that weather has to be recorded 3 times a day, 4 times a day in the wintertime, but that's currently not happening.
So of all the claims that we've had, how many times have we won? Somebody makes a claim, what
There
are the
was
chances
one
you're gonna win?
potential claim where we had major issues because we weren't able to prove that
That data.
that data.
Yeah,
And fortunately, we was able to be settled and dealt with quickly. Otherwise, it would have been a much bigger issue.
so with this data, you would win that case rather than
You
have
would-
to settle, is that what you're saying?
Good
Probably
chances it would be dismissed in the discovery hearing,
Unless it shows that
That's
we really
what
didn't
the-
do what we were supposed to do.
unless it shows
then.
we're, yeah.
That's what the investigator stated, that logbook did not matter.
You need the record. You need the permanent record that you
Yeah.
can prove to say that it was
Yeah.
sunny out on this day, or it was stormy out on this day,
And,
or
yeah,
whatever.
and it's not just
They
that,
crossed the line
it's just
coming at
multiple
me.
claims from individuals all
So you're more.
over
you're-
the place.
you're
My
gonna be-
windows broke, my vehicle was
Yeah.
damaged, this was,
So you're gonna be more successful in fighting these claims.
Mhm. If there was like an ice issue, for example, I have no record. Usually you have a computer in the truck that'll tell you how many tons you put out on a certain day. We don't even have that record. So without the data that this would provide us, we can't even prove that we were out sanding today.
Okay.
what I'm really concerned about is that one claim that may come to us, I'm scared that they may increase our premium 50 grand a year
Yeah.
just on that basis in order to say, hey, you have this claim existing. And it'll go to the courts and everything, but as long as there's a claim that's there in the background, they use that as justification to substantially increase your premiums. So that's my main worry, is we can't afford to.
Not good.
Mhm.
Does this, this might sound dumb, but does this not seem a little too like Big Brothery, like we're spying on our 3 guys driving around?
It
It's
does-
I don't think
Like,
that's what you're doing,
need,
though.
do we need to have a camera in everyone's office to make sure everyone's working where they're supposed to? Like, I'm just like, I'm totally, I
that's,
don't get it.
There should be no, in a public building, there should be no expectation of privacy. It doesn't matter whether you're walking into a courthouse
Yeah.
or you're walking into anywhere. What I would, I mean, it is, I'm going to speak on behalf of the 3 of us that are here at this table. The GPS cameras and building cameras are something that we are very firmly endorsing for multiple reasons as a necessary investment to the future sustainability of the organization. And it really didn't come to me until very recently that we do have some of the unconditional grant money that we could use to cover these things. And that's what I would suggest, that we transfer some of that 2019 unconditional grant and use that to cover the capital purchases of these. I think in the long run, it will help to, like, that's not to say that your insurance costs aren't going to go up, but it will, in the long run, help with those increases. It will help with future claims documentation for minimum standards. We do, as we are doing, because we are very fortunate to have the staff that we do, make no mistake about that. We are very, very fortunate. There's a lot of experience, knowledge, loyalty, and we don't want it for people to think that it's a Big Brother atmosphere. It really comes down to properly managing the assets that we have. I think that with the potential changes over the next 5 years, I think it will help us to figure out how we can, like, maybe we need to change things up. And again, it's not really a conversation for an open meeting, but we may need to change the sort of the pieces of the puzzle and how they all fit, and this will likely provide, I believe what your term was, third-party data to be able to say, well, I think this might work and this might work better. So I would suggest that you use some of that unconditional revenue that we have left available.
Yeah, I'm okay with that, because I know what, I mean, I come from a railway background, and they've been doing this for years. And they even had video capability on the locomotives where they'd be going down the track and videotape everything. And I myself personally viewed crossing incidents where, you know, people made claims that no one was blowing the whistle at the crossing and other things. And the video proved that, and a fire on the right of way, and the video proved that it wasn't the railway's fault. It was, you know, which would have cost a lot of money. It ended up that they won the case, so it is valuable information.
If we're worried about the cost of it, I know White River is doing it in stages. They're doing just the GPS, I believe, this year. But I mean, if we're going to get it covered.
Yeah.
I think that's just the new world order. Without data, you're lost. Or it's expensive.
Okay.
Do we want to record that as a transfer?
I vote no, but whatever.
Okay, anybody got anything else on the capital?
Yeah, I had a question about the floor, the community hall arena floor machine. What is that?
Tammy, did you want to talk about that?
Yep, the floor machine that the arena currently has is extremely old and doesn't hold a charge. So it's not capable of even doing the arena floor. It takes them a week to do it as opposed to an 8-hour shift. The standards for cleaning has changed industry-wide. So the days of a mop and bucket are gone. That's just spreading contaminants rather than cleaning. So with the floor machines, that is the industry standard that they recommend everyone go to. Unfortunately, the one that we do have at the arena is old and past its lifespan, so that one definitely needs to be replaced. And the one that I propose for the municipal complex here is a much smaller machine, but still meets the standards set out by the province.
Is it like that riding Zamboni thing?
It'll
Like
be,
they have in the schools?
yeah, much smaller,
Okay.
but yes,
Okay.
similar too. So it's going to be much more efficient. It can be used for the arena floor, the arena halls, the community hall floor and halls. It just keeps everything much more sanitary and much more efficient. You can do the cleaning in like half the time or less.
Is it like easily transferable from place to place, or?
That ride-on can go between the arena and rec complex without any issue. I wouldn't recommend bringing it over here on a regular basis.
No.
So it's something you have to do.
Yes.
And then My other question was, under signage, there's just nothing?
So that is it was,
Like, is that talking like signage for like
It is
advertising our Discovery Center? And
no,
like, what is it?
no, that was, there's some discussion going on one of the highway signs.
Uh-huh.
I can give you some more detail on that.
Oh, I think I know what you're talking about.
Okay.
Okay, never mind.
Yeah.
So why is it?
Well, I should, you know.
I guess why is there no number though?
Cause there's, at this point in time, lit sleeping dogs line.
Okay, cool.
What's going on with the boiler? I see that deleted, but,
For the
Yes.
municipal complex?
yeah,
Is it?
is that,
I'll let Tammy give you the
Okay.
fine details, but
Just give an update on
where, I know that Tammy's working on getting a quote for that. The boiler we have existing is very inefficient. This is something from the
Yeah.
1960s. Its lifespan has ended. We're
Yeah.
hoping to replace it and get something that will utilize far less energy, that will, in the long run, save us more money.
The boiler currently, as it stands, is it's not burning clean. Sometimes it doesn't light, so we're getting heavy fumes in the community. It's really starting to be a huge concern of even an explosion. So we have to do something about it very quickly.
yeah.
So I am working with Cloud Darling for a quote on replacing the furnace. And then they also have a division of Cloud Darling that can hopefully assist us in finding some grant money to make that happen.
Okay, so if we don't have grant money, then where does the money come from?
Yeah, that's the problem.
Yeah. So if the boiler blows up
Oh
tomorrow,
my God, touch the wood.
Yeah.
I would do that.
well, I'm looking at the
Yeah.
worst case scenario.
It is a very possibility that we could end up with a catastrophic failure that will cost us a lot of money if we don't be
I'll touch wood.
proactive.
So what do we do then? What's the fix for this?
Well, we're looking for potential funding, and you know what, as part of the process of getting the quote,
Yeah, okay.
I think it's Flo Darling's looking at getting some
Yeah.
pricing, and they're also looking at potential funding for this, so.
So we're very hopeful that
Yeah,
it's gonna work.
Something will.
we should be able to take advantage of some grant for this, hopefully at a 50-50 ratio.
And if not, we'll have to scramble.
For heating and reducing energy costs, the footprint, there seems to be a lot of opportunities. We just have to
Yeah.
find the right one that will fit our needs.
Yeah. I know at the CP station, they're in the same position where their boiler was 100 years old, and then they replaced it eventually with a tiny little unit. So,
Yeah.
Yeah, makes sense.
I gotta take a break too.
Okay, we just will take a break.
Well, I might as well run too then.
Definitely don't have quorum, so. It's still going on, but if I do pause it and restart it, it's a bit slow.
Might lose the connection too.
I'm surprised it stayed on. Accessibility doors, how much we end up allocating there so far. We've not spent any money.
We spent some. But we're saying that the difference from, like, that was a project that was approved in
Previous years,
21,
yeah.
but we didn't.
Yep.
Yeah, didn't we spend like 13 or something for 8?
Yeah, we spent something, I thought.
We spent like 8 something.
So far, yes.
So far.
Correct, yeah.
Yeah. I'll check with her when she comes.
So when it says CH, that's this building?
Community hall,
Or the,
community hall,
okay.
yep. MC is municipal
Yeah,
complex.
no, yeah.
Yeah. And if
So
it's
that-
medical center, it's
so-
gonna be deep.
I mean, the entrance doors, that's not part of the accessibility thing?
It is part of the accessibility.
So why is it a separate item?
Well, because originally that was something that was in separately, but then with conversations, it was like, no, that really was something that is included in the 70, so that's why it's not, there's nothing.
That's why it's
associated.
deleted?
Well, that's why there's nothing in that one column,
Yeah, I know, it says entrance doors and then it's deleted $7,000.
because it's all in that
Because it's in that
top.
70, okay.
Yeah.
That's what I was wondering. I thought maybe we needed to buy new doors or something like that. Okay.
Okay, I got a quorum back.
I just have one more question. The wall repair, I know we were like all hot to do it for 3 months it seems, and now it's just kind of disappeared. So is it fixed, or is it
No,
are we destroying our building slowly by not fixing it? Because it seemed like such an urgent thing for like 3 months, like we gotta do this, and then it just disappeared.
It turned out that those bricks were more or less sort of like a veneer, like they weren't structurally.
So it was just an appearance thing.
Yes.
Yeah, it's
Everything
cosmetic.
behind it is okay.
Yes.
Well,
Oh,
it's, what it was is a decor brick on top of.
yeah, on top of brick.
I would still love to see the cracks patched up, whether they're
For
patched
show,
up
yeah.
with mortar, or whether they're patched up with just caulking so the water doesn't get behind them.
Okay, so so I guess my question is.
It's not a structure thing.
Okay, so then my question is, do we even need to have this ever talked about again? Like, do we
Yes.
need to see this $22,000 ever again?
We're hoping to have it repaired at the same time that we have the concrete wall people come in for the dam repairs. It'll be the same kind of injection to fill cracks. So while they're here, we're hoping to have the repair done, but for much less money.
So hopefully less than the 22 grand.
Yes.
You don't have any estimates what that may be now? Eh?
I don't.
Is that dam gonna be repaired this year?
I'm in talks with them, trying to get them, get a schedule together with them.
The accessibility doors, what's the total cost for this year you're anticipating? Because I don't think we'll be maximizing it to the full 70 grand.
We're gonna be pretty close
Oh, okay.
to that, yes. We've got the, it's in your accessibility plan, but we've
Yep.
got, the handicap washrooms that, will need to be done, one in this building, library, arena, and then the, reception doors for, the municipal complex. So it'll be close between electrical costs to run the electricity to run the operators, and then the operator installation. And again, that's just about meeting standards.
And fire hall electrical upgrades, that's.
I
Remember
think that if you needed to cut, I feel you could cut that. The 19,000 includes increasing the power going to their communication board, where their command center is. They are functioning the way it is. They just have power bars and stuff like that. It included a dryer receptacle. It included installing receptacles on the ceiling to plug the trucks in, with future ability of switching it from the 15 amp to a 30 amp as the trucks are replaced. And then part of that 19,000 was also a pony panel installation to accommodate the generator. So currently, the generator is working with the building. They back it up to the back door and they just run extension cords underneath the garage door to plug whatever they need in. So it's a luxury at this point to have a pony panel where you could just drive the generator up to the back, plug it into the building, and it would power certain things inside your building.
So the upgrades in their communication equipment, it would still be able to work with the electrical they have?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
I mean, if they're doing it just to do it,
Pardon me?
I guess if they're doing if they want all that just
It's a wish list.
because, why are we saying yes?
Yeah.
It's not the year to say yes.
No.
Yeah. Like
It's something
all-
that will have to be done in the future,
Yeah.
so, but it's not
But
necessarily
the
an urgent matter.
ESA didn't come in and say, you
No.
need to
Yeah.
do this.
No.
Okay.
Like they did with us.
Okay, I'm
fine moving that to
Yeah,
the
We have to,
donation
we-
pile.
I'm,
in the,
Well, I mean, if we're saying no to the dryer, and that's gonna, never mind.
yeah, exactly, you don't need a dryer plug.
what's the 10.8 for the equipment?
That is, mostly, I will tell you, one second. That had to do with, wilderness, I do believe it was, which he identified, our fire chief, identified as critical on his list.
Or is that the forest fire nozzle and
There
stuff?
was replacement hose for 2,400, wilderness rescue equipment for $2,000, for wildland forestry equipment for $5,000. Those 3 are all critical, and then a nozzle of 1,400. That was what the 10.8 was.
So that's the 10H you're talking about there.
Yeah.
Yeah, you did show me the forest fire nozzle broken.
Yeah. Anything else on that list, Tammy, that is more of a wish list than a need? Under fire?
Under fire, I mean, it's just my opinion, but forest fire equipment would be covered under M&R. Forest fire fighting, they come very quickly. But that's just my opinion. The rest is really under fire. I'm not sure that you could eliminate anything there.
Council has already approved the turnout there and the SCBA
Yeah,
upgrades,
that's
so
what I was
those 2
thinking,
are
that we already did that, so.
non-negotiable.
All right,
I talked with Jan about the forest fire, the hoses and that, and they have to supply a certain amount. They're not meeting that amount, or something to that effect.
I think you might be right on that.
So, and then he said, wait here for a second, I was talking about another issue, and he said, and he went up and he got the nozzle, and he said this blew apart in the guy's hands the other night. So, I really believe that they need that. I wish they didn't, but
It is what it is.
Yeah. Okay, and the dam the dam, I know I've had conversation with you before, for really 3,500, or 35,000, I mean?
that's for repairs as well.
Yeah, oh yeah, no, I know.
Yeah, he stands by that. He said with the, because that was quoted in the fall of last year, he said that he really could increase it this spring with the extra expenses of traveling, but he will stand by that price. But it's all specialized injection on some of the cracks. We certainly don't want to see the deterioration of that dam.
I think it's a
So-
critical,
Yeah.
Critical
investment in
component.
infrastructure, for
Yeah.
preventative.
And with the
catastrophic.
holes that we've got on top that they want to patch, the more the water washes away in those holes, it'll just make them
Yeah.
bigger.
Yeah.
And the deterioration will only get worse if we
Yeah.
don't take care of this.
Who actually is responsible for the inspections of these structures?
Township,
The township and the
It's our
township
dam.
alone?
yep, it's our dam.
You mean that, no, I would have thought that there's,
The government agency that looks at that as
Right,
well, and
right.
and tells you to do it.
yeah.
Has anybody told us that we had to do it? I guess that's a good question.
It's part of regulations that
Yeah.
it has to be
Has to be
inspected. And,
inspected.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So who's inspecting it or did it or?
So it depends on the level of inspection. There's different levels of inspections at different times. But the most thorough inspection would be having divers come in and going down and inspecting the inside of the dam and the screens and the valves and there are some things on the dam that we will, in the near future, have to consider. That valve that's down there right now is not in operation, but they have been pulling the screens twice a year to clean those. Screen replacement will have to happen eventually. I'm not talking about this year, but there is an expense to that dam for sure. The crane for lifting the screens is also compromised, like it's aged is all it is. But we're making do with what we have for now.
So what are we down to now, Marlene?
You're down to 4.9.
Okay, I got another one here. The wastewater, the building upgrades, 200,000. That is.
I haven't
phase
got,
one.
yeah, I haven't got confirmation from the OCAF parties, but it meets the criteria. So I'm hoping that I can get the OCAF funding to allocate it, those wastewater treatment plant upgrades, electrical upgrades.
Okay, but, yeah, but the 200 is phase one.
Yes.
Remember we
Yeah.
broke it down
Yeah,
into
roughly.
I think it was four
Yeah.
phases.
Yeah.
We're still in phase one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have it in the revenue,
Yeah.
Yep.
right?
Covered.
Yeah.
So hopefully, it means our OCF allocation would be tied to this project for, I think, the next 2 years as well. And I'll be using the, I think it was from 2019 that we,
Yeah.
2019. From the 2019 allocation to the next few allocations as well, I'm probably gonna
And
tie it to this project.
so then that's the same with like this feasibility study, that's based on a grant.
That one,
What, which one are you
The
talking?
ATF phase 6, phase 2.
That's,
Oh, yeah.
that is like 100% funded, that is for the
That's
active
happening,
transportation
and
fund
that's
for the.
happening.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. The security cameras, I know we kind of talked about the GPS, but are they coming, that would be installed on the outside of those 4 buildings?
Both inside and outside is my understanding, right?
Yep,
And then would they do it at the same time they come to do the other ones we just approved?
different company.
Oh,
The security cameras can be installed by us. It's just a purchase.
okay.
And who monitors all that?
It would all be fed into my office and monitored from there.
So I think I asked,
Oh, go ahead, Doug.
I thought I asked before about this Ontario street reline. Could you run that by me again?
That is the water main that at each end of Ontario Street
Right.
that was never replaced with the original sometime in the 80s.
Right.
So right now we get percolation for certain residents. So the reline, and we've got funding for that.
Yeah.
So they will reline those sections of pipe and.
They can just do a particular area.
That's right,
Right,
yeah.
okay, thank you.
So I guess this isn't like a T-Bay telemonitored,
No,
so then what's the purpose of it? So watch the inside and outside of a building, why?
This is more or less for the instance, the entrances for our buildings as well. And it's there to protect the security of our assets, as well as, again, we tend to have a lot of claims for slip and falls right in front of the.
Yeah, I get it on the outside, I don't
Yeah.
get what, like, you're gonna put a camera in the library?
no.
Okay.
It's mostly the entrances.
Okay, that's what I was,
Spots,
that's
because
what I-
that's where it happens, you know, every year. It's crazy.
Mhm.
So we need to again prove that we put the salt there, and it was, and also it gives perfect, because based on previous claims, we were going down to talking about shoes and what time it was salted and all of that. So
I'm just like,
it
yeah,
covers it well.
if we're gonna put cameras everywhere someone could slip. There's a lot of cameras.
In a past claim,
Hey, where does it start?
in a past claim, it wasn't an internal part of the building that ended
Well,
up going to court.
Well, that's what I mean, like someone's
Yeah.
walking in our gym,
Yeah.
do they sign something to say you may trip and fall and we're not liable? That's not a stupid question.
There is, yes, you, so even,
Okay.
there is a waiver, but again, any lawyer will tell you the waiver is worth.
Sign a
It's
waiver, not
a
penalty.
necessary step that you have, so that if you do get sued, you can say that the person can't come and say, well, I didn't know there was a risk to that,
Yeah.
right? That's the whole point, so your waiver is an
I
important piece.
just see no end in sight to this then.
It is, like, it really,
It's really
I mean,
stupid if you,
well,
like,
if you watch any, if you're looking at any of the news or whatever, really and truly Canada is becoming like the States where you sue anybody over anything, right? That's the reality of the situation right now, like, and yeah, human nature wise, it is a very disappointing
yeah.
trend in
ridiculous.
behavior.
That just brings up a question about our busy areas downtown in the wintertime, like post office, the bank, wherever there's a lot of traffic. How do we protect against slips, trips and falls? Because I seen a lady go down one day
Yep.
right outside my truck.
Yep.
It was like, she was standing there and all of a sudden she disappeared.
Yep.
And she went right down hard, and I'm thinking, how do we protect against that? She was on the sidewalk.
Yeah.
Because your GPS and cameras that you're talking about putting into your equipment, the trackless would have the GPS and would be
Yeah.
able to prove that we've sanded it within the minimum standard time allotment.
Yeah.
And also with the camera on the front of the library would probably pick up a large section of the street.
Yeah, so that, I mean, the question is that our focus point for, in the wintertime daily, is that where we start protecting those properties? Like the high traffic areas, do we start there?
You mean
The
clearing?
Sand clearing and sanding?
Yes.
Okay.
Your sidewalks are always a little longer to get to because in a snowstorm, you have 4 pieces of equipment that need to go out.
Yeah.
And you only have 3 guys.
And, yeah, but it's just where the priorities are.
Yeah. So as soon as they get out, they go to the high priority
Okay, good.
You
areas.
know what, and if anyone even gives me a phone call and says, I think it may be slippery there,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know, I call you or Public Works and they take a
Yeah.
look at it right away because, yeah, like Marlene is saying, this is unfortunately the nature of where we're at. I know we had a delegation with, I think it was the Attorney General's office, and unfortunately, there's still no change for insurance and just maintaining the status quo with our premiums. I mean, it's bound to be another $30,000 increase next year without any claims, so it's the claims just keep increasing, the premium keeps increasing. I feel like we have to do, even though these are, you know, costs now, I think it may save you in the long term if there is any potential claim that comes in.
Yeah, I agree.
I guess, did we decide on this swim raft? Like, do we want to use our rec reserve for it? It's not like it, I don't, personally.
Don't wanna do a vote on it?
I would rather use the rec reserve money for something else,
Well,
more central to
I was just
Schreiber.
gonna say, instead of using that for the raft, which I don't necessarily think
Like what,
it needs to be out there in the first place, but you could, this reserves, like, I'm curious too, I mean, how much money can or could you, or should you take out of reserves to keep this tax increase down? Is there a limit to that, you know? I mean, part of it could be what was gonna pay for this raft, but what else could you use? You know, what's in the reserve?
So you could take out, if the dock, cause really it's a dock, right?
Yeah.
If that is not something that you wanted to spend it on and you were still looking, to go from your 4.9, you could just take that expense out of there, and that $5,000 that's coming out could go towards your floor machine, for example, right?
Mm-hmm.
I just see that as,
A better use of
A
funds.
different benefit, yeah.
well, yeah, or like, what if Heritage Days doesn't make lots of money and we ended up having this huge deficit? Not saying that's gonna happen, but I'd rather have that than a raft floating at White Sand. As a cushion to say, hey, you know,
I agree.
I can go along with that.
Okay.
nothing against White Sand.
So we're taking both the revenue and the expense out?
Yeah, that's what they decided.
Okay, so we're still at the 4.9.
Yeah.
I just wanted to,
I mean,
okay, yep.
Unless,
Wasn't sure my
unless,
thinking is
unless
right.
as a group you wanna use it to the floor, to use that $5,000 for the walk behind thing, like Marlene said, or would you rather just keep it in reserve?
Keep it for now.
Yeah,
Keep it from
okay. I'm okay with that.
I would keep it too, because at the end of the day, your committees, your rec committee and Heritage Days, right, they have their own, pot of money in their reserve to do that. The recreation infrastructure reserve was basically done to pay for infrastructure, not for events, basically, right? That was the
That's
purpose
what
of.
that reserve is,
That is the
I thought it was,
infrastructure, yeah.
so there's a rec infrastructure and then a
Rec committee.
recreation type
Yeah.
of, okay.
Yeah, so. Very good.
Okay. That's all I had about that list.
I don't think we're there yet.
What are you looking at now?
Oh, here's a good question for you, Dan, and others, but under planning and development there,
Where are you looking at?
expenses.
Oh, okay, in capital?
I don't know, this. Down here,
Planning capital, yeah, see it.
this, like, how necessary is it to do this A6 Phase 2
It's funded,
study?
it's funded
Well,
by grant, correct? So,
Yep.
Yeah, it's 100% funded.
Oh,
50,
but it's in here.
50, no, it's 50,000, not 5 grand. Did
Yeah.
I think I have 50,000 in that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah.
Okay, good, okay.
Oh, I didn't.
So as it's presented with 4.9, what would the monthly increase be to the average?
On $100,000 of assessment, it would be $19 a month, $223 roughly a year.
And on a 50,000, that would be half of that.
That puts the mill rate less than, obviously, 0.05, correct?
Yeah,
We're still in the point.
0.047669.
So your tax bill would show a 5% increase in your tax bill over last year.
Roughly, yeah.
Okay.
Mhm. And like I said, at the 4.9%, again, there's no transfer to reserve for any
Yeah.
future capital infrastructure needs.
So, and inflation rate's at
7.7?
7.7, and we're increasing the taxes by 5%. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah. I still think we gotta have the conversation about how we run the arena.
Yeah, no, absolutely, I think that's a good idea.
I mean,
We need to sit down.
this day and age and.
Yeah, that is a huge
The
event.
situation and everything, I don't want to worry anybody, I'm not talking about cutting jobs or anything, it's just, we gotta have conversation. And
And if you're worried, or if you're thinking about it, you probably have more insight than any of us. And, so I agree.
What's going on is the cost just to have your status quo, not even adding
Yeah.
anything, is becoming crazy.
I mean,
It just, part of that, again, insurance costs
Yeah.
has gone up substantially each year. I can't imagine what it's gonna go to next year as well.
if we can't even get FOS. And when we can't get FOS, that means that our full-time is getting lots of overtime.
Yeah,
And you can't operate it, you can't keep operating like that. You can't. Not without your user fees going up, or
yeah, it's harder to get for
it's
anybody.
just, don't make sense. We're just digging ourselves deeper.
Yeah.
So I think we have to come back and,
Well, that's not gonna change a budget line, though.
It's not going to impact the budget right now, and I mean, my suggestion would be that you take a look at, if you're going to do, obviously it would be an in-camera meeting, and it may be one that you want to schedule as like a separate meeting, just a special meeting, just to discuss strategy.
Internal
'Cause they're
operations.
like an internal strategy,
I don't think that's a bad
because
idea.
there were a lot of components and variables that would go into how you're basically going to reorganize. Because that's really what you're doing, is reorganizing, right? And there's impacts in there, so.
You would notice it budget-wise, if we had a meeting and things operated better, you would notice a savings next year. In terms of like as a line item that we
Go
spend.
for, and a
Yeah.
go forward situation, yeah.
So I think it's a very beneficial conversation to be had,
Yes.
sooner than later.
oh,
Yeah.
so do I.
Yeah.
I think there are some very significant hurdles that will need to be, like, I don't think it's going to be any kind of a quick fix or anything
No.
like that, but it is a discussion, I think, that you're right, needs to take place. Yeah. And not just in that, I think it's overall in the departments ultimately, right? It comes down to how do you make things more efficient? That's what it comes down to. And how do you attract entry-level people for positions, right? That's what you want to do, which all comes down in with your succession planning and how you are best training people that are going to stay ultimately, because as you go through your succession planning, right, it is part of the cost is the training of those individuals, and yeah, so it will be a good conversation, definitely.
Something so simple, you don't call an entry-level job a facility operator supervisor, because you're scaring the hell out of the person before they even apply.
And again, there's a process when you're changing
You know,
titles
yeah.
and all that kind of stuff.
I've unofficially started calling it a FOS attendant.
So how soon do you want to do this?
Tomorrow?
All right.
Saturday.
Saturday?
No, tomorrow's Saturday.
Sunday then?
Dave's in deck building mode.
Yeah.
I got Monday, I guess. I don't
It's supposed to be a nice week.
Like overall, I'm looking at, we did a service delivery review in 2015, was it 2015?
15 was the KPMG, yeah.
Yes, 2015, taking a look at it, part of the goal is to eventually, develop a strategic plan that's oriented towards each department, focus on outcomes that we want, what are key performance indicators that are department oriented, and go from there. But yeah, it is becoming it's becoming very expensive to operate with the status quo, so we need to think outside the box, and sometimes it does end up costing money to save more money. Whether it's a new boiler, you're going to save money in the long run, but you got to come up with the money to get that new boiler. If we're replacing these lights, they're fluorescent lights throughout this building, right, and we need to switch the ballasts and the lights, that's again savings down the road, but an initial cost. So the best way to do a lot of these changes, if we identify grants in order to make sure that our costs stay low. But even like the floor machine, it means more efficiency in cleaning the arena faster, but then again you have to bite the bullet in the short term. So
Marlene, last year in the actual budget, like, for some reason we were in a position to be able to write off $520,000 worth of taxes.
So in 2021, there were significant write-off of arrears on properties that we owned, that we, council
Right.
wrote the taxes off, and part of it was that we were selling one of the properties, right?
Yeah.
And the other factors were that we were writing off based on uncollectible in order to claw back the school board taxes as well. So we had, that was part of the strategy that we were doing that. And we did have the room in our allowance for doubtful accounts to factor that in. So if you're wondering why it's highlighted in there, it means that there's a year-end journal entry that has to come through to compensate for those large write-offs that occurred.
Like it's 50,000 for this.
Yeah.
For this year.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, a lot of the township properties have been sold quite a bit recently.
In 22. A
Right.
lot of the ones that have, a lot of the properties that over the years that the township has vested in have recently.
So are those dollars in this budget?
Yes, so the revenue from those sales are in your administration tab
They are.
under other revenues. So that
Okay.
has been taken into consideration.
Yeah. All
But
right.
of course, the revenue does not
But there's
come
more
close
to
to
come too, right? In a sense.
potentially, yeah.
We hope.
Yeah.
And hopefully, yeah, like tax revenue next year, hopefully.
You should see a difference in, so where this year you were starting off 2022 in a deficit by the $11,741 because of the changes in the class changes for the properties that were classed as exempt will change throughout the 2022 year to being, whether it's residential or commercial or whatever it is, so you will see that. And I mean, my forecasting is that you will see an increase in your CVA for 2023 taxation, because depending on what happens everywhere else, because you see that difference. The growth is actually measured by new assessment, whether that's by new building, new taxable assessment by new buildings coming up, or changes in class. So with the sales that are happening with our properties that are listed as exempt, they will go from exempt to residential. So you should see a little bit. I'm not anticipating it's going to be huge amounts of assessment or anything like that, but at least it will be, there should be a change there. You may recall for the 2021, it was, I think it was 5,500 that we had a loss over 2020. And then from 2021 to 2022 was the 11,000. So we lost a little bit more in there, but I'm thinking you should see it should be pretty either equitable, depending, I don't think we have too many demolitions or anything like that are going on in that are in there.
So we'll go the other way.
Yeah, nothing extravagant. And there, again, there's no, you know, where everyone says, oh, we need to have a new role, we need to have a new role. Like, we need to have new, what is it called? Not the destination point. Oh my God, it's escaping me right now. But when MPAC, they haven't presented a new role, new valuation date, right? What that will do when pure growth isn't going to change, is what changes how you start out on a levy increase. The change in the assessment with a new role based on the sales that have happened in that 4 years changes the distribution amongst,
makes it fair.
Yeah, amongst people, right? But it doesn't change the amount that you have to spend in your budget, kind of thing. So, yeah.
But if they do their job right, it should be fair.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
The fairest would be is if they did it every year, but never mind a 4 year, or people, if you're gonna pick one point in time, then guess what? If you get to have your reduction based on this point in time in the first year, you also have your increase in the first year and you pay it over the next, instead of putting it out, but yeah.
The goal is to reflect market value. The moment you see a deviation from that, right, then obviously, you know, there's something strange going on.
So I guess the question is, is it the direction of council to bring forward the 2022 budget at the 4.9, or are you there, or?
Keep in mind it was 3.7 that you were starting out with without
your collective bargaining unit increase and your fuel increases. So really, if you look at that, if you do 4.9 and you take the 3.7 you're only really increasing 1.2. You're not putting anything through to for future needs, and you aren't accounting for your collective bargaining unit increases or anything like that. But
And that was what, 2%?
2% to the hourly wage, which doesn't include your employer benefits, right?
Yeah.
Well,
does that leave next year's people sitting here with the potential of 12% being recommended instead of 10?
That is the reality, right?
Yeah,
that is the reality over the years, right? Yeah. It is a snowball effect that happens.
Yeah.
Again, right, the recommendation was 10%, so.
with the, I mean,
So, given what we've changed or whatever, from an operational standpoint, what would the new recommendation be if you were, would it still be 10%? Or would it be 8.3%, or?
You're saying if you're including amortization?
No, I'm talking about like, you came with the recommendation of a 10% levy increase. The paper said 7 point whatever, we made changes to what was on the paper. Would you still say we need to do it 10%?
I would, so I would say, you know, if you were gonna, you would, so you're at 4.9, if you go with the 2015 service delivery review at the 2% for capital contribution, right, you're looking at 6.9. If you go with the most recent asset management plan, you're looking at 3%, which would be 7.9.
But we never listen to those things. So.
And at the end of the day, right, so the responsibility is for your management team to identify what the key, identify what is there, right? We're not the only municipality that has an infrastructure deficit, right? That's the reality of it, but is making decisions, you guys are making decisions based on the most up-to-date information that's available, right?
A lot of the maintenance, building structure, you know, the infrastructure is aging and it's not been well maintained in the past, and you're going to have some big expenses coming your way. Just to consider, you know, I'm not saying this year, but there's a lot that's been ignored.
And because of the gap, the only way to fill it is with grants. And
Yeah.
that means if something fails, you know, and we can't wait for a grant, you're gonna have to do it.
So-
And you're gonna borrow.
So if we don't start transferring to those 2% here, 2% there, if we don't do it this year, then we're gonna have to do it at some point, right?
Yeah.
So
I think-
so how will it hurt us if we don't do it this year?
It's like Nathan is saying, is when we touched wood on there, and again, I'm not
Yeah.
gonna
Do it
do it
again.
again. Like, that's the whole thing, is if you
Yeah,
have something
okay.
catastrophic, right, but it comes down to, I would say that, again, if, I'm a very conservative individual by nature, so it's like having the conversation about the dam. You need to put the 30, like, as you're doing, you need to do the 35,000 to make
Right.
sure that you're staffed, because that would be a catastrophic, right?
Yes.
We do not want to be like BC was last year, right? That's not where where their levies failed and all that kind of stuff, like, that's not where we want to be, right?
Yeah.
And so, I look from a building, like our infrastructure building standpoint, and again, the second half of the asset management plan that's being put together right now, crystal ball, if you're looking at the future, I think we're gonna find out that we're not in as bad a shape as what the current condition assessments are, because that's what we're working on right now. And I think we're fortunate. I mean, you look at the HVAC and stuff like that, that seems to be where the issues are right now, but we've also identified that we are getting onto a regular maintenance routine, which in the end is going to save you money. If you do your regular maintenance, you put synthetic oil in your car instead of whatever, again, but right, in the long term, it's going to be better. So it might cost you a little bit in maintenance, you know, $20 extra for your oil change or whatever, but whatever, right? I think that, again, it's our job to identify that there isn't anything going into the reserve, but I think also we've identified that again, your succession planning right now is the biggest thing. That is your short-term, put the fire out kind of thing, like that's where you are right now, and becoming a more efficient operation. And that's not to say that we're not right now, please, the general public, people that are listening, everyone here, we're not saying that, you know, that we're not efficient. It's just to say that everybody should always be trying to improve.
It's
right?
continuous improvement.
That's
Yeah.
the thing, and getting, the suggestions, like we have our seasoned, staff and we have new people, like there's good in listening to new people too, right? That's the whole thing, and establishing the dialogue there to say, okay, what do you see? How do you see things doing? And I think that that's an important activity that we have to do.
So I would recommend passing this with the 4.9. I mean, it's gonna be a hard sell, but I mean, with everything that's gone up the way it has, our insurance and,
Yeah, I think everybody understands
Well-
inflation. I mean, it's everywhere, you hear it everywhere, so, I mean,
yes.
we have to account for it.
We're the same as everybody
Yeah,
else.
that's right.
We're, our costs go up too.
Yeah.
Our costs go up delivering services, outpatient. So, I recommend we go with the 4.9. Everybody,
I'm good with that.
Dave, Doug?
I guess so. I mean,
Okay.
I wouldn't mind if we'd have done a little bit better, but
I would like to find better too, but I mean, we can, I don't know how we're going to do that.
right.
Okay, so we'll let the minutes will reflect that council's directing the treasurer to bring forward the 2022 budget with a 4.9% levy increase. And we're hoping to, if everyone is all right, we're hoping to have a special council meeting on July the 22nd to do that. Is everyone available? It's a Friday,
Friday
the
morning.
22nd, 9 a.m.
That's during Heritage Days?
That is during Heritage Days. I do believe the 22nd, we looked at that to see what was going on during the day. I think it's a luncheon.
Our meeting is that week as well?
Yeah, you have a
Correct?
meeting on 19th
July
in
22nd,
the
July 22nd, Friday, 9 a.m.
evening.
right?
Yeah.
You sent out
I was saying, yeah, but does everybody
I
look
should be
like you're?
here. I think I'm in town, yeah.
I'd be good.
Yeah, I think I'm
Okay.
We just
perfect.
needed a bit more time from that meeting.
No, yeah, no,
To
yeah,
put things
that's-
together.
So then it would go, okay, yeah, never mind.
I mean, it would be a
Yep.
quick meeting.
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
At 9 o'clock?
9 a.m., yeah. And I'll send the memo to, I'll send the email out to everybody.
All right.
Okay.
Okay,
You want all this stuff back?
Don't you have to do all these
We
transfers?
got another report on.
Oh,
our
yeah.
All the
side.
transfers?
Yeah, don't you have to do all these
Yeah.
transfers?
It was getting ready.
okay, item number 3, transfer to reserves. Resolution 159-22, moved by Councillor McGrath, seconded by Councillor Stafuric. That council transfer to the provincial dedicated gas tax reserve fund $22,774, which represents funding received in 2021. Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Carried. Where are you going?
Getting ready.
That was a lot.
Resolution 160-22, moved by Councillor Stafuric, seconded by Councillor McGrath, that council transfer to the Recreation Committee Reserve Fund $113.25, which represents bocce ball fundraising profits for 2021. All those in favor? Carried. Resolution 161-22. Moved by Councillor Stafuric, seconded by Councillor Morrow, that council transfer to the Recreation Committee Reserve Fund $97.45, which represents net apparel sales for 2021. All those in favor? Carried. Resolution 162-22, moved by Councilor McGrath, seconded by Councilor Morrow, that council transfer from the Recreation Committee Reserve Fund $945.22, which represents the 2021 Winter Carnival loss. All those in favor? Carried. Resolution 163-22, moved by Councilor Morrow, seconded by Councilor Stefuric, that council transfer from the Recreation Committee Reserve Fund $500, which represents the Heritage Days 2020 CCR performance deposit. All those in favor? Carried.
2020?
Yep, there was a deposit that was made, I don't recall if it was in 2019 for a 2020 performance,
Oh.
and they didn't end up, they weren't able to come and, yeah.
Okay, sorry.
And resolution 164-22, moved by Councilor Stefuric, seconded by Councilor McGrath, that the meeting now adjourned at 11:52 a.m.